Picture this. A billion-dollar deal is about to collapse. The CEO of America's fastest-growing tech company is standing in a boardroom in Paris, sweating bullets. His French translator just had a heart attack in the elevator. 12 French investors are staring at him, speaking rapid French, and he doesn't understand a single word. The deal that would save his company from bankruptcy is slipping away by the second. Then, from the back of the room, a young woman in a janitor's uniform steps forward and says in perfect French, "Excusez-moi, je peux vous aider." What happened next didn't just save a billion-dollar deal. It exposed the biggest lie we've been told about success, opportunity, and who really deserves to be in the room where it happens. This is the true story of Sofia Rodriguez. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at opportunity the same way again. Because what Sofia did in that boardroom didn't just change her life. It revealed a hidden truth about talent that's been hiding in plain sight all around us. But here's the part that'll blow your mind. Sofia wasn't supposed to be in that building. She wasn't supposed to speak up. And she definitely wasn't supposed to become the youngest VP in the company's history just 18 months later. Stay with me, because this story will either inspire you to see opportunities everywhere, or you'll dismiss it and wonder why life keeps passing you by. Let me take you back to where this all began. Sofia Rodriguez was 19 years old, working the night shift as a janitor at Technova Industries in Silicon Valley. Every night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., she would clean the offices of some of the most successful people in America. But here's what makes Sofia different from everyone else in this story. While she was emptying trash cans, she was listening. While she was mopping floors, she was learning. While everyone else saw just another invisible janitor, Sofia was absorbing every conversation, every strategy meeting, every heated discussion about market expansion. You see, Sofia had a secret. She spoke 5 languages fluently: English, Spanish, French, German, and Mandarin. She had learned them online, using free resources, while working 3 jobs to support her family after her father's construction accident left him unable to work. But nobody knew. Why would they? She was just a janitor. Sofia would clean the conference rooms where executives discussed international expansion. She'd overhear phone calls about deals falling through because of language barriers. She witnessed countless opportunities lost because the right person was in the room. For 2 years, Sofia watched and learned. She understood the business better than some of the executives. She knew which clients were happy, which ones were thinking of leaving, which deals were struggling. But she never said a word, because who would listen to a janitor? Then came March 15th, 2023, the day that changed everything. CEO Jonathan Mitchell had been planning this French expansion for 8 months. Technova was hemorrhaging money after a failed product launch, and this Paris deal with a consortium of French investors was literally their last chance to avoid bankruptcy. Mitchell had hired the best French translator money could buy, Dr. Philippe Laurent, a renowned linguistic expert who had worked with Fortune 500 companies for 20 years. But fate had other plans. As they were taking the elevator up to the 40th floor of the Montparnasse Tower in Paris, Dr. Laurent clutched his chest and collapsed. Heart attack. He was rushed to the hospital, alive but unable to help. Mitchell stood in that elevator, realizing his company's future was about to crumble. 12 of France's most powerful investors were waiting. The presentation was in English, but the negotiations, the questions, the critical details, everything would be in French. He had 2 choices: postpone the meeting and risk losing the deal forever, or walk in there and try to wing it with Google Translate. He chose to fight. But as Mitchell walked into that boardroom and saw 12 stern French faces, he realized he had made a terrible mistake. These weren't patient, English-speaking businessmen. These were old-school French investors who expected to be addressed in their language, with their cultural nuances respected. The presentation started fine. Mitchell spoke in English. They listened politely. But then came the questions. Rapid-fire French. Technical terms. Cultural references he couldn't begin to understand. Mitchell tried using his phone to translate, but it was a disaster. He was making elementary mistakes, accidentally agreeing to terms he didn't understand, misrepresenting his company's capabilities. The French investors started looking at each other with that particular expression. That means this American doesn't respect us enough to speak our language. The deal was dying in real time. That's when Sofia stepped forward. She had been cleaning the adjacent conference room when she heard the commotion. Through the glass walls, she could see Mitchell struggling, sweating, clearly in distress. For a moment, she hesitated. This wasn't her place. She was nobody, just a janitor. But then she thought about her father, working construction for 30 years, never given a chance to show what he could really do. She thought about her mother, cleaning houses for wealthy families who never learned her name. She thought about all the invisible people who had brilliant minds but no platform. Sofia made a decision that would change everything. She knocked on the door and entered. "Excusez-moi," she said in perfect French. "Je peux voir avec l'introduction?" The room went silent. 12 investors stared at this young woman in a janitor's uniform who had just offered to help with translation in flawless French. Mitchell's first instinct was embarrassment. His translator was a janitor? But then he saw something in Sofia's eyes, confidence, intelligence, and an understanding of the situation that went deeper than language. "Do you really speak French?" he whispered. Sofia didn't answer him. Instead, she turned to the lead investor, Monsieur Dubois, and said in sophisticated French, "Monsieur Dubois, I apologize for the interruption. Mr. Mitchell is deeply committed to this partnership and has prepared extensively for this meeting. However, our translator has had a medical emergency. I have been following your company's work in sustainable technology for several years and would be honored to facilitate this conversation, if you would permit it." Dubois was stunned, not just by her perfect French, but by her knowledge of his company, her professional demeanor, and the respect she showed for French business culture. "Who are you?" Dubois asked in French. "My name is Sofia Rodriguez. I work for Technova Industries, and I believe deeply in what this partnership could accomplish." She didn't lie. She didn't say she was an executive or a professional translator. She simply identified herself as someone who worked for the company and believed in the mission. What happened next was magical. Sofia didn't just translate words. She translated culture. When Mitchell made a point about American innovation, Sofia added context about how this innovation respected European values and regulations. When the French investors expressed concerns about cultural compatibility, Sofia helped Mitchell understand the deeper meaning behind their questions. But here's what was really happening. Sofia wasn't just translating. She was adding value. She would hear a French investor's concern, understand the cultural context, and help Mitchell address not just what they said, but what they meant. For example, when one investor said, say, "iridescent maze," "It's interesting, but," Sofia whispered to Mitchell, "he's concerned about long-term support." In French business culture, this phrase means he needs more assurance about your commitment to the French market. Mitchell then pivoted to discuss Technova's 5-year France expansion plan, directly addressing the unspoken concern. The dynamic in the room shifted. The French investors began directing some questions to Sofia, recognizing her as someone who truly understood both cultures. Sofia would answer in French, then explain to Mitchell, creating a 3-way dialogue that was richer than any simple translation. 2 hours later, they had a preliminary agreement worth $850 million. As they were leaving, Monsieur Dubois approached Sofia and said in English, "Mademoiselle, you saved this deal. But more than that, you showed respect for our culture in a way that most American executives never do." "Who trained you?" Sofia smiled and said, "YouTube University, sir. And every conversation I've overheard while cleaning these offices for 2 years." The next morning, Mitchell called Sofia into his office. But it wasn't the executive office. It was a conference room, because he wanted to have this conversation at the same table where she had just saved his company. "Sofia," he said, "I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest. How long have you known about our business operations?" Sofia took a deep breath. This was it. The moment she could either play it safe or bet on herself. "Mr. Mitchell, I've been cleaning your offices for 2 years. I've heard every strategy meeting, every client call, every discussion about expansion plans. I know that the Johnson account is thinking of leaving because they feel underserved. I know that your German expansion failed because your team didn't understand the regulatory requirements. I know that your biggest opportunity is in sustainable technology, but you're afraid to pivot because it requires too much initial investment. Mitchell stared at her. You know all that from cleaning? I know all that from paying attention, from caring about the company I work for, from understanding that success isn't about your title, it's about your contribution. Mitchell leaned back in his chair. Here was a 19-year-old janitor who understood his business better than some of his VPs. Sofia, I'm going to offer you something unprecedented. I want you to become our Director of International Relations. I want you to lead our European expansion. I want you to be the person who prevents us from making cultural mistakes that could cost millions. Sofia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Mr. Mitchell, I appreciate the offer, but I have one condition. Mitchell raised an eyebrow. What's that? I want to create a program that identifies hidden talent throughout the company. I want to find other people like me, people who have been overlooked, underestimated, or ignored because they don't fit the traditional profile of leadership. I want to prove that talent exists everywhere, but opportunity doesn't. 6 months later, Sofia had not only successfully negotiated deals in France, Germany, and Spain, but she had created the Hidden Potential Program that identified 12 other employees who had been underutilized despite their extraordinary capabilities. A security guard who spoke 4 languages became head of international security protocols. A cafeteria worker with an MBA from her home country became a financial analyst. A maintenance worker with engineering expertise became a product consultant. By the end of her first year, Sofia's initiatives had generated over $200 million in additional revenue. But the real transformation wasn't financial. It was philosophical. Sofia had proven that in every organization, there are invisible people with extraordinary abilities. The question isn't whether talent exists, it's whether we're paying attention. Today, Sofia Rodriguez is 21 years old and the youngest VP in Technova's history. But more importantly, she's changed how an entire company thinks about talent, opportunity, and potential. Here's what Sofia's story teaches us about opportunity. Lesson 1. Preparation meets opportunity. Sofia didn't just get lucky. She had spent years preparing, learning languages, understanding the business, developing skills. When opportunity knocked, she was ready. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. But most people aren't prepared when their moment comes. Lesson 2. Add value. Don't just participate. Sofia didn't just translate words. She added cultural context, business insight, and strategic thinking. She made herself indispensable by bringing unique value to the situation. Success comes from making yourself valuable, not just visible. Lesson 3. Speak up for your worth. For 2 years, Sofia had valuable knowledge and skills that nobody knew about. The moment she decided to speak up and demonstrate her value, everything changed. Your talents are worthless if nobody knows they exist. Lesson 4. Opportunity disguises itself as problems. When the translator had a heart attack, everyone saw a disaster. Sofia saw an opportunity. The biggest breakthroughs often come from the biggest problems. Train yourself to see opportunity in crisis. But here's the deeper truth that Sofia's story reveals. Right now, in your workplace, your neighborhood, your community, there are Sofia Rodriguezes everywhere. Brilliant people with extraordinary talents who are invisible because we've been conditioned to only look for talent in traditional places. The security guard who speaks 5 languages. The barista with a business degree from another country. The Uber driver who used to run a company. The house cleaner who has incredible insights about the family she works for. We live in a world full of hidden talent, but we've created systems that only recognize talent when it comes in familiar packaging. Sofia's story isn't just about one person getting an opportunity. It's about questioning our assumptions about who deserves to be in the room, who has something valuable to contribute, and where we look for solutions. But here's what might make you uncomfortable. How many Sofia Rodriguezes have you walked past without seeing? How many times have you been in a situation where the person with the best insight was the one nobody asked? How often do we miss opportunities because we're not paying attention to the people right in front of us? The next time you're facing a challenge, ask yourself, who in my environment might have insights I haven't considered? Who are the invisible people with valuable perspectives? Because here's the truth that successful people understand. The best ideas don't always come from the people with the best titles. The most valuable insights don't always come from the highest paid consultants. Sometimes, the person who can save your business is the one you've been ignoring. Sofia Rodriguez proved that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. The question is, are you going to be someone who creates opportunities for hidden talent? Or are you to keep walking past the next Sofia Rodriguez without ever knowing what you missed? Your success might depend on your answer, because in a world where everyone is looking up for answers, sometimes the solution is standing right beside you, waiting for someone to pay attention. The janitor's daughter didn't just save a billion-dollar deal. She showed us that extraordinary people are everywhere. We just have to stop being blind to their brilliance. What are you going to do with that knowledge?